Picture-perfect family, the Hart children, Marcus, Hannah, Devonte, Abigail, Jeremiah, and Sierra, were all found dead, along with their parents Jennifer and Sarah, after their car plunged off a cliff. But long before it came to this, the children had made desperate pleas for help, cries that went unheard until it was too late.
It was a very confusing scene because there were no skid marks, there were no brake marks.
On March 26, 2018, an SUV was spotted in the Pacific Ocean, 100 feet below a cliff in Northern California. Investigators soon found the bodies of Jennifer and Sarah Hart and 3 of their adopted children, but their other 3 kids were still missing, including 15-year-old Devonte.
Jennifer and Sarah Hart were born just months apart in 1979, and both come from South Dakota. Jennifer had 2 siblings, while Sarah had 3, and they both grew up as the oldest in their families. Sarah was the quiet one, the responsible rule follower who didn't make much noise. Not much is known about her early life, but she was often described as reserved and thoughtful. Jennifer, on the other hand, was the total opposite. She was full of life, always the center of attention, and never afraid to speak her mind. She was confident, funny, and sometimes even a bit abrasive. Jennifer's parents divorced when she was young, and she mostly lived with her mom. But at 14, after a big argument, she moved in with her dad. That didn't last long, though. She was a bit of a rebel and started pushing boundaries. Her dad couldn't handle it, and soon enough, she was sent back to live with her mom. That was just the way Jennifer's life was, full of energy and not afraid to challenge the rules. Fast forward to 2002, Sarah and Jennifer started dating in college while attending Northern State University. Both wanted to be educators. Sarah focused on special education, and Jennifer aimed to be a teacher as well. But, true to their contrasting personalities, Sarah stayed the course, graduated, while Jennifer ended up dropping out. In 2004, they moved to Minnesota, and they had already started their journey into parenthood. By 2005, Sarah had changed her last name to Hart. They both found work in retail, but they were still hiding their relationship from those around them. To family and friends, they were just best friends and roommates. They took in their first foster child, a 15-year-old girl named Lee. Lee, who is now in her 20s, has shared her story about what happened back in 2004. Friends of Jennifer and Sarah came forward later, saying that Jennifer claimed the 15-year-old Lee was eating out of the trash. One day, when they were taking Lee to her therapy appointment, the Hart women drove up, got her out of the car, and watched as she went into the building. Then, they simply drove away and never came back. Lee later said that she had no idea this was happening until her therapist told her she wouldn't be returning to Jennifer and Sarah's home. Instead, she was going to a new foster home. When she arrived at her new foster parents' house, all her stuff was already there, which made it clear that Jennifer and Sarah had planned to leave her behind all along. Lee had believed she would stay with them until she was 18. She also insisted she never ate out of the trash, and even if she did, it wouldn't justify what happened next. It was also reported that Jennifer and Sarah Hart claimed Lee was suicidal, and they didn't want that kind of negative energy around their adopted children. Not long after abandoning Lee, in 2006, Jennifer and Sarah took in 3 siblings through the Texas foster care system. The siblings were 8-year-old Marcus, 4-year-old Hannah, and 2-year-old Abigail. Sarah continued working as the manager of a department store called Herberger's, while Jennifer stayed home with the kids. Friends and relatives noticed some odd signs when they visited. The children never spoke. One relative described Jennifer as extremely strict, saying if the kids did anything she thought was wrong, she would snap her fingers and say, "Get in the corner, no food for you." The same relative noted that anyone who questioned Jennifer's parenting was cut off from the family. "Jen wouldn't have anything to do with you if you disagreed with her," they said. In June of 2008, the next 3 children, 5-year-old Devonte, 4-year-old Jeremiah, and 3-year-old Sierra, were adopted. Tragically, it only took one small mistake to forever change the lives of these 3 children. But first, Let's go back to the other kids. In 2008, a teacher noticed bruises on Hannah's left arm and questioned her about them. Hannah said that Jennifer had hit her with a belt. Within months of this incident, all the children were withdrawn from school. For the rest of the year, no charges were ever filed regarding the abuse. In 2009, Sarah, Jennifer, and all the children traveled to Connecticut, where the couple officially married in March. That same year, the Harts sent an email to family members announcing their plans to expand their family even further. Sarah was attempting to get pregnant, and in the email, Jennifer wrote, "After 10 years of talking about this, we have decided on a donor. This month will be the first time she will have done the actual procedure. It's kind of nerve-wracking." But in July, Jennifer sent another email claiming that the baby didn't make it. This raises the question, how could a young couple manage to raise 6 kids and pay for in vitro fertilization on a single salary? It turns out they were receiving between $400 and $500 per month per adopted child, plus Social Security benefits for 2 of the boys. This financial support made up a large portion of their income, which led some to believe it was the motivation behind their adoptions. In 2010, Abigail confided in a teacher that she had owies on her back and stomach. She claimed that Sarah and Jennifer had punished her after finding a penny on her, which they believed she had stolen. As punishment, they reportedly held her head under cold water while hitting her. When the police interviewed the other children, they all described similar patterns of punishment: spankings, being grounded, and having their food taken away. At this point in time, Sarah was the one working outside the home, while Jennifer, who was known for being cheerful but often described as harsh, stayed home with the kids. Jennifer handled the day-to-day tasks, including cleaning the house, taking care of the children, and getting them on and off the bus if they went to school. Many believed that Jennifer was the dominant force in the household, which led people to think that she had Sarah take the fall for incidents involving the children, including one where Abigail claimed that Jen was responsible. Sarah eventually pleaded guilty to assault and was given probation. In 2011, another incident occurred when Hannah told the school nurse that she hadn't eaten all day, which Sarah denied. Not long after this, all the children were withdrawn from public school again and began homeschooling. In 2011, Hannah told the school nurse that she hadn't eaten. This reportedly made Jennifer very angry, who allegedly responded by shoving a banana and peanuts into Hannah's mouth in a fit of anger. When confronted by the police or others about the children's lack of food, Sarah dismissed the concerns, saying, "Oh, they're just playing the food card again. They're always playing the food card." Teachers also noticed that the Hart children were way too thin. When their growth charts were examined, it was discovered that all 6 kids were underweight and shorter than average for their ages. While it's not uncommon for some children to grow at different rates, the fact that all 6 kids who came from different genetic backgrounds were underweight was suspicious. As teachers began reporting concerns to Child Protective Services, the police started to investigate the Hart mothers. But once Sarah completed her year of probation, following a guilty plea to assault charges, the family quickly packed up and moved again. In 2013, they settled in West Lynn, Oregon. In West Lynn, the Harts rented a house with a small farm with goats and chickens. The family became well known in the local community, as they often attended music festivals where the children would dance and spread joy wherever they went. The Hart kids were described as having big smiles, radiant personalities, and an abundance of love, which made them loved by those who met them. Their happiness and loving nature were so infectious that even people who had never wanted children began to reconsider, as they were inspired by how precious and happy these 6 children seemed. But under the mask, the kids were in terrible danger, and no one realized it until it was too late. Now, Jennifer and Sarah would often say that the reason people kept calling CPS on them was because they were a same-sex couple. They believed that people were targeting them for this reason, and that's why they kept moving from state to state. On the surface, Some folks might have believed them. They could see how it might look like they were being picked on just because they were different, raising all these adopted kids as a same-sex couple. But when investigators started talking to their friends and family, a different story came out. Those close to the Harts said they were worried about the kids. They described the environment in that home as bad, even controlling. The kids had to raise their hands before they could speak, and they were barely fed. There was this one time when Jennifer ordered a pizza, and each of the 6 kids got just a tiny slice. But when Jennifer found out that the kids had eaten the rest of the pizza overnight, she flipped out. She punished them by not giving them breakfast and made them stay in bed for 5 hours, all because they had eaten more than what she had given them. Friends and family also noticed other strange, strict behaviors, like how the kids always had to walk in single file and how harsh Jennifer could be. When anyone questioned her, saying things like, "Why are the kids being treated so harshly?" or "Why do they have to raise their hands to speak?" it was clear that something wasn't right. Back then, the interviews with the children didn't lead to any concrete evidence of abuse, which left the police unable to determine that the Harts were guilty of any wrongdoing at that time. Meanwhile, Jennifer Hart was creating a Facebook page that portrayed a picture-perfect, happy, and active family. The page was filled with photos and videos of the family at music festivals and on road trips. At that point, it was obvious that Jennifer and Sarah were using the children, especially Devante, to showcase their political opinions that were extremely pro-love and kindness. But while they publicly promoted these values, they were failing to show that same love and kindness to their children behind closed doors. On November 25, 2014, the Harts attended a protest in downtown Portland. The protest was in response to a Missouri grand jury's decision not to indict the police officer who had shot and killed Michael Brown in Ferguson just a few months earlier. During the protest, Devante was holding a sign that read, "Free Hugs," when an officer approached him and asked if he could have one. A freelance photographer captured the moment, and the resulting photo quickly went viral. As the photo quickly went viral, the family began receiving a lot of media interest, with television shows asking for interviews with Devante. But Jennifer refused these opportunities and claimed that she was protecting Devante's privacy. Jennifer later said that the family had received death threats, which led them to move out of the area. But the police never found any evidence to support these claims. It's more likely that the increasing public attention was unwelcome, as the Harts preferred to keep their family life hidden away from the public. In 2017, the family moved to Woodland, Washington, which was about 30 miles north of Portland, Oregon. But this move was different. They settled into a house on a 2-acre lot, with plenty of space and distance from any close neighbors. This isolation gave them even more control over the kids. The closest neighbors were Bruce and Dana DeKalb, who lived in one of the few neighboring houses. The DeKalbs realized that the family rarely came outside, and the curtains were almost always closed. And by March 23, 2017, they had called the police with concerns about the Hart children. The main worry was that the kids weren't being fed properly. They were all small and looked undernourished. For example, one girl who was 12 years old appeared to be about 7. When asked about her missing front teeth, the Hart mothers had a strange explanation. They claimed she didn't want them replaced. The whole situation seemed off, but again, it wasn't enough for authorities to take immediate action.
The one girl who was 12 looked like she was 7. Both of her teeth were missing, front teeth, and we questioned, what's up with the teeth thing? And they said, well, she didn't want them replaced. We thought that was a little weird, but anyway, they were all very small.
Very thin.
Yeah.
Then, in August of 2017, things escalated. Hannah, who was around 15 at the time, made a desperate move. At 1:30 a.m. in the morning, she jumped out of the second-story window of the Hart home. She ran as fast as she could to the DeKalb's residence and started banging on the door, clearly terrified. Bruce and Dana were shocked by her appearance. She was so thin that they mistook her for a much younger child, thinking she was around 6 or 7 years old. Shortly after, Jennifer arrived and took Hannah back home.
1:30 in the morning, the doorbell's ringing, and I answered the door, and then she was standing out there with in a blanket, completely covered in blackberries, because she had gone to that neighbor's house through the blackberries, and then they have a gate that locks that, so she ended up back over on our front doorstep. And at the time, I didn't know what to do, so
What'd she say?
she said that she said that she wanted us to take her to Seattle, and that they weren't treating her right. Don't make her go back.
The following day, the entire Hart family showed up at the DeKalb house to apologize for the incident. Jennifer explained to the DeKalbs that the children sometimes acted out because they were all drug babies, implying that their behavioral issues stemmed from being born to mothers who had used drugs during pregnancy. Hannah later handed the DeKalbs a handwritten note, apologizing for her behavior and claiming that what she had said the previous night was a lie. When Dana DeKalb asked to speak with Hannah alone, Jennifer refused, insisting, "We do everything as a family." At first, the DeKalbs didn't want to get involved, but Dana's father grew increasingly worried about the children. A few days later, he decided to report the incident to 911. The dispatcher asked for more details, and Dana's father described how the girl, who he thought was about 12 or 13 years old, was terrified and begged the DeKalbs not to let her parents know she was there. When Jennifer eventually came to pick up Hannah, she brought all the children with her, and they stood at attention, looking scared to death. Dana's father also told the dispatcher, "I just can't let this go any longer. Those kids, I think, are in very serious danger." His instincts were spot on. He could sense that something was terribly wrong, and he was absolutely right to be worried. He even mentioned to the dispatcher that the children might have been kidnapped. The police, however, claimed there was nothing they could do. A few months later, Devontae started coming over to the DeKalb's house asking for food. Bruce would quietly give him something to eat, and Devontae would beg him not to tell his mothers. Eventually, Devontae returned with a wish list of items, things like peanut butter, fruits, bagels, and cured meats. He asked Bruce to leave the food in a box by a section of the fence so Jennifer and Sarah wouldn't see it.
One of the children came over and started asking for food. And it went on for a period of time until we kind of determined that he was probably reaching out. And we determined that we should call the Child Protective Services, and that's what we did on Friday.
Said he was asking for a lot of
a lot of food. I mean, it started out very,
tortillas and a case of food, multiple cured meats, and non-perishable food items.
Right.
And he was asking that we not tell his mom and to hide it and put it by the fence so he could get to it, that they were withholding food from him as punishment.
Oh, it was Devontae.
definitely.
You guys have shown us pictures, and we've talked about that one, that it was Devontae, because they all came over the next morning with a,
With a story.
a story.
And Devontae told us that they had lied and made us, just to make us feel good that everything Hannah told us was true.
After this happened about 10 times, Dana reported it to Child Protective Services. A CPS agent arrived at the Hart's house that same afternoon, but even though they saw the family pull into their driveway in their GMC Yukon, nobody answered the door. The Washington State Department of Social and Health Services reported that they tried to contact the Harts on March 23rd and again on the 26th, 2018. On the 24th, the DeKalbs noticed that the Yukon was no longer in the driveway. After the Harts left their house, there were no more social media updates from Jennifer, who was usually very active online. As they traveled down the Oregon coast into California, Sarah texted her work on the morning of Saturday, the 24th, claiming to be sick, but she didn't show up for work on the 25th or the 26th. One of Sarah's co-workers, concerned that she hadn't shown up for work in 3 days, called for a welfare check on the 26th of March. The co-worker explained to the dispatcher that Sarah had texted around 3 in the morning on Saturday saying she was sick, but no one had been able to reach her or her wife Jen since then. The co-worker added that Sarah's phone seemed to be dead and that she'd even checked the hospital, but there was no record of her there. The dispatcher asked for more details, but the co-worker could only say that they were worried because it was unusual for Sarah to go off the radar like this. She also mentioned that Sarah and Jennifer lived with their 6 children. That same afternoon, a German tourist reported seeing a GMC Yukon lying on its roof at the bottom of a 100-foot cliff. When the police arrived at the scene, they found the bodies of Jennifer and Sarah Hart inside the vehicle. The bodies of Marcus, Abigail, and Jeremiah were discovered a few hundred yards from the wreckage, all of them dead. 2 weeks later, Sarah's body was found washed up on a beach north of the cliff, and a foot, still inside a shoe, washed ashore shortly after. A DNA test confirmed that it belonged to Hannah. Devontae's body was never recovered. After analyzing the vehicle's data, the police found that the Yukon had gone from idling to speeding towards the cliff at 20 miles per hour. The analysis strongly suggested that this was an intentional act. It was determined that Jennifer Hart had pulled the GMC Yukon over about 70 feet away from the cliff's edge before flooring the gas pedal, speeding up to 20 miles per hour, and driving off the cliff. The car's onboard screen showed that Jennifer hadn't touched the brakes at any point during the fatal plunge. Toxicology reports revealed that Jennifer had a blood alcohol level above the legal limit, and both Sarah and 2 of the children had high levels of antihistamines in their systems. None of the passengers were wearing seat belts. After examination, the police found a series of disturbing Google searches in Sarah Hart's phone, which included questions about Benadryl, suicide, no-kill shelters, and methods of dying. Among the searches were phrases like, "Can 500 milligrams of Benadryl kill a 120-pound woman?" "Is death by drowning relatively painless?" and "How long does it take to die from hypothermia while drowning in a car?" When the police in Washington state searched the Hart residence, they found nothing immediately suspicious, but they did notice that this was not a typical family house. The room shared by all 6 kids had no personal items, and the entire house had only a few board games and library books. One officer noted that he did not get the indication that children lived in the house. Animal control later picked up the animals left on the property, but the fate of the family's dogs remains unknown. This likely explains why Sarah had searched for no-kill shelters before the murder-suicide. The motivations behind the Hart family's devastating decision remain a mystery. Despite the numerous unsettling details, we may never fully understand why they chose to take such a tragic path. Why do you think it took so long for anyone to act on the warning signs? And why do you think Sarah and Jennifer Hart resorted to this? Comment down below. If you want more videos like this, please consider dropping a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on more true crime videos. Take care and see you in the next one.